This is an intro. Intro.
Hustle and float chart with your boy,
My boy.
Matt Wolf and Joe Fier.
Hey.
Buenos tardes. Dude, I didn't know we were going to record this on the toilet.
Oh, I'm doing my. I just did a PR.
Not a BM.
Bench pressed my the size of my car. I don't know. I can't really bench press.
This went off the rails quick.
Oh, come on. Talking to a fitness man.
Yeah, I know where you're going with this.
I don't make that grunting sound though when I lift stuff.
You don't?
I mean, not like that. Not like that. That was me lifting my computer.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I make that sound for lifting anything. This piece of paper.
It's really kind of distracting when we're working in the same office together.
Well, you know, I mean, if you want me to do my best work, Matt, you just got to live with what comes with it.
I just got to live with the...
All right, I'll stop now.
All right. Yeah, today's guest is the founder, the creator, the owner of probably the largest CrossFit brand, like in the country at least, right?
It's very large, and maybe so. I would say he is. It's a premier facility. They're basically. I think they're the most recognized.
The most recognized. That's kind of what I was trying to get to. The
There
most recognizable brand in CrossFit.
There you go. So yeah, Invictus. So CJ Martin is who we're talking to today. Is the founder of Invictus Fitness, and they're based out of San Diego, but they have online courses and training and stuff like that. But if you're into CrossFit, because that's like the core fitness style that they have over there. If you ever watch the CrossFit games or anything like that, you'll see a lot of their athletes there, which is really cool. It's impressive. I mean, it's I think he said the last 11 consecutive years they've had teams there, basically ever since they've done like team games in CrossFit. They've had a presence there.
Yeah, I don't really totally know how CrossFit games work. It's probably a question I should have asked on the recording, but you know,
I know a little.
Yeah, you probably know enough. So the CrossFit games, it's not like you can just like apply and anybody who wants to be in it can be in it, right?
No,
this is like the most elite athletes doing CrossFit, right? This is like
there's a qualification. There's a ton of qualifications that you have to go through, different events, and it's tough.
So there's all sorts of like tournaments and other events and things that happen that you got to make it past that one, make it past that one, make it past that one, and then this sort of like Super Bowl. It all culminates in this CrossFit Games.
That's
right?
what it is. Yeah,
right. And
there's an individual part and there's a team part.
And so Invictus CrossFit, they've actually had years where 30 of their people went in 1 year, right?
I'm looking. They've coached more than 60 individual CrossFit Game athletes and 20 CrossFit Game teams.
Okay.
So he might have mentioned something at anyone. But
I know I'm probably getting my wires crossed with all the numbers, but
that's a lot.
Basically, the people that come out of this gym, he sends the most.
Yeah, and what's really cool is in this interview. Again, this is our first time we ever chatted with CJ, and I've done CrossFit, and you know I've great friends Ryan and Stina who own a gym locally called Uprise right now.
We gotta give a shout out to Josh Sai too.
Josh Sai, Josh Sai gave us one of the questions that we should ask CJ today.
Yeah.
And what up, Josh? He's out protecting LA from forest fires and whatnot. So that's very nice of him. And but I don't
think he deals with forest fires. I think that's Cal Fire.
He's done
he
fire
works for the
stuff.
LA Fire Department.
I know. He does fire stuff. I've seen video.
Yeah, but he's going to give you crap when he hears this and says that he's out fighting forest fires.
He's done big fires. I don't know.
Oh, I guess he does work with forest fires sometimes because I've seen videos of him out working on forest fires.
Exactly.
Sorry, Josh.
All right. So, God, he's trying to take credit away from you, Josh. That's how rude. No, but going back to Invictus and CJ, I believe Josh actually has done some workshops at Invictus like numerous years. So there's that connection there. So There you go, CJ. We wrapped it all up for you. You have a alum over there. But yeah, no, CJ, so back to the whole athlete thing that you were saying. It's interesting because I think a lot of folks know of Invictus because they see them a lot in media and whatnot like that.
And on shirts.
And on shirts now, yeah. But CJ said like that's never been a focus of the Invictus brand culture, they're just what they do in the gym. He's more of a human, like he's getting to the core of like the wants and needs of people and instilling really good exercises and routines and stuff like that to make him a better person. And he's doing a damn good job because it seems like he's, the best of the best come out of that crew. And of course, people get attracted to that.
Now that I know a little bit more about CrossFit, some of the conversations we had on this show make more sense.
I'm happy we aired that in recording, so everybody learned along with you learning. Yeah.
So, but in this episode, if you think it's an episode where we're just talking about fitness and CrossFit and why CrossFit's the best, that's not what we're
talking about.
We're actually...
Oh, you're wrong.
No, we're actually talking about how he managed to build such a successful brand with Invictus, how he grew his CrossFit gym while other gyms have actually been sort of declining and struggling lately, but his is still, very, very, it's doing very well. We talked about the mindset things that he instills in his athletes at his company, because it's all just as applicable to entrepreneurs, right? Like
everything is
the sort of mental toughness that it requires to be an elite athlete is there's a lot of the same mental toughness that's required to be an elite entrepreneur.
Totally. And that's why we really wanted to bring CJ on is anyone who's working at an elite level and who trains and fosters and creates elite people, that's someone that we want to talk to on this show, because there's definitely qualities that anyone can take from them. Doesn't matter if you're an athlete, business person, or whoever. Like there's a lot of these perseverance type qualities that you'll hear CJ talk about, like where he almost went under back in 2016, and he got pretty vulnerable in telling his story, and it's awesome. And we can take that, and it all comes back to the mindset. It's this it's this push to success and not giving up, and that's what you'll hear a lot in this episode. And I mean, from my personal experience doing this kind of work, like it doesn't matter if it's CrossFit or jiu-jitsu or whatever consistently, but if you're challenging yourself a lot, that's what I like. Like I mentioned in this episode, it's kind of like golf a little bit. Like you're not really competing against anyone unless you're like in a tournament, but typically it's just you.
Right.
And look at business, like your to-do list, your inbox, and all your priorities. Like you're just battling yourself and your attention and trying to not be distracted. Shout out to Near Isle about Indistractable. But like that's how I feel like CrossFit and all that stuff has benefited me.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I've never done CrossFit. I'm obviously getting a CrossFit lesson during this conversation here, and also on the podcast itself.
Yeah.
But I think having a discipline of like anything that you were just disciplined at it. You keep going back no matter how hard it gets, how much you don't want to, you just do the work. You keep coming back. I think any sort of, having something like that in your life is very, very important, because a lot of the mental toughness and the mental things that instills trickles into the other aspects of your life.
Everything. Yeah. It's all connected.
Yeah.
And that's what's really cool. And, yeah, I don't know. We talk a lot of, it just goes all over the place.
I also learned what Invictus means too.
From the poem from Henley.
Yes.
Yeah. I was not familiar. I've heard that the poem before. I didn't know it was the Invictus poem though.
Yeah.
So I want to look it up actually.
Yeah. Very cool.
I cannot recite it right now because I don't remember.
Well,
but
we'll let him do it.
Yeah.
He does it in the episode.
He does it perfectly.
Yeah.
But the core thing is
the notes.
Get the it will be in the notes. All right, Sue, can you make sure that's in the notes, please? Thank you. All right, so we'll stop blabbering now. Get the notes. Yeah. Wow, that was good, dude.
Jinx. Owe me a Coke. All right, so you can text the word comp to 38470. Comp. Oh, Joe.
Thank you. Okay, now I can talk.
That's how it works, right? If I say your name, then you're allowed to talk.
I think so. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I was jinxed, so I couldn't say anything.
Gotcha. Yeah, so text the word comp to 38470 and we'll shoot you the notes.
That was good. I haven't done jinx since elementary school. We remember the rules. Good job.
That's good.
So yeah, get them notes. We're always talking about how we take notes of every single episode. So just take advantage of us. Get them notes. They're free. But be quick. Only 2 weeks in, you'll get these notes. After 2 weeks, they go away, and you'll get other notes for free. Yeah. But, there's a cool little Epic membership that's like next to nothing cost-wise that you could just get everything.
Yeah.
And not have to worry about time.
So to get those notes, text comp, 38470.
38470.
Comp.
38470 comp. Cool. So,
or go to hustleandflowchart.com/comp. If you're on a desktop, it's probably easier that way. Hustleandflowchart.com/comp. Get them notes.
Comp. All right.
This has been one of the weirdest intros I think we've ever done.
It can get weirder. All right, we'll stop.
Let's stop.
We'll save that for off air. Hey, CJ, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man. No, this is actually pretty sweet because we're all from San Diego, and I've done some CrossFit for quite a bit now, and we watch the games a ton, and you guys are everywhere. The Invictus brand.
Yeah, we've been blessed with some really great athletes.
You have. Well, yeah, you're blessed, but there's obviously I'm sure there's a big old storage systems and processes that are happening that are maybe unseen by most.
Yeah, there's definitely some secrets to it.
Let's hopefully you can share a little bit here, and
we'll spill some of them today.
Yes, sweet. Thank you, sir. Yeah, no, it's interesting because we got connected from Eric Berman. We had him on the show recently of Branded Ties, another San Diego agency, and we go to his mastermind. So he only works with just interesting companies, interesting people doing great things. So when he was like, "Hey, you want to talk to CJ?" We're like, of course. So I always wanted to say how we got connected, but let's you have an interesting background too, because you started in law, at least as far as we know.
Yeah, somewhat atypical background, I guess, for a fitness coach and gym owner.
Right. Well, give us let's go back in time a little bit to kind of walk us up into speed of where, how Invictus came to be and, what kind of kickstarted all this stuff for you.
Yeah. Awesome. I'm going to take it way back to like 7th grade when we had a project that said, what do you want to do with your life when you get older? I grew up in martial arts, and I'm so clear on my vision in the 7th grade. I was like, I'm going to open a Taekwondo studio, and I'm going to pick up kids after school in a van, and then I will teach them Taekwondo, and their parents can pick them up, and then I'll teach adults. And in 7th grade, that clarity was awesome. And then life happens. You go to college, and then you think, I got to get this big boy job, and I got to make money. I got to support a family. And so I went to law school and did all the things, graded onto law review, and got the big firm job, and really enjoyed practicing. I practiced securities litigation for 5 years at a large international law firm, and finally at some point had to step back and say, like, okay, well, this is where I am, and how does it align with my core values and the things that I wanted to accomplish in my lifetime, and kind of realized that the 7th grade me was way smarter than the 20-something, late 20s version of myself.
You had the intuition, man. Yeah, it's like kids, and they got that.
Well,
so really, it was kind of stripping back and figuring out, hey, what's important here? Because I made a great living as a very successful young lawyer, and I just kind of realized that like my lifelong impact was not going to be there. I wasn't sure that I wanted written on my tombstone, successfully defended lots of Fortune 500 companies, 35 lawsuits. So then for me, it was just kind of really assessing how I wanted to live. And I wanted to make real, tangible impact in others' lives and help shape my community. And I was, I'd just gotten myself out of being, I was a lifelong athlete and, very involved in martial arts and boxing, and played baseball in college, and then, kind of got out of law school and started working at a law firm and realized that I had no idea why I worked out if it weren't for sport and performance. Right. I was never like bicep curls in the gym kind of meathead guy. I was always like sprinting, jumping, plyometrics, something that would make me better at whatever it was that I wanted to do. And so I stumbled into CrossFit. This was early on when it was still relatively unknown, and just realized, well, wow, this answers so many questions for me. And then got really passionate about the changes that it could help people make, and not just physically, inside the gym, but really more specifically in how you can help shape somebody's character and help them forge a little more resilience by certain training methods.
Yeah.
I'm curious what that transition looked like from lawyer to starting a gym, because I imagine you've got a pretty stable income. You kind of know it's coming in. There's some comfort, some stability there, and then you decide, okay, I'm gonna go start my own business, which is like the opposite of stability in the early days. Like how did you save up a bunch of money and then go and do it? Did you get investors? Like how did that transition look?
Yeah, great question. And so one thing that I'm always careful to mention, because in the years since making the transition, I've had some very eager, ambitious people say, I'm going to quit my job and do this, whatever. And I'm like, no, don't do it. Because you have to still make sure that there's a viable path for you, right? And passion is awesome, but you got to have some, realism as well. And so I actually did my full transition, to go a little deeper into the story, was I was essentially running a different gym, one that I was a member at, and the owners had moved away. And I said, well, heck, give me the keys. Like, I'll kind of, take over. And so I ended up essentially running this gym for about 18 months. And so my schedule was, to wake up around 5, open the gym at 5:30 a.m., coach until about 8 a.m., go to the law firm, work until 5:45, race across town, coach from 6 to 8 p.m.
Wow.
Eat some dinner, and then go back to the law firm and work until 1 or 2, and then do it all again. And so after about 18 months of living on 4 hours or less of sleep, it just got to a point where I'm like, if I'm willing to essentially kill myself for this and ruin my own health, then it's time to make a change.
Yeah.
And so it was really during that whole process that I realized, that this was something worth doing in my life. I did not have a bunch of financial wherewithal. I was very proud. I grew up, very working class, and in our family, it was just the pride of making sure you support yourself. And so I would even tell you that I had a negative connotation of accepting any sort of funding or loans. It was like, no, I'm doing this. Is all me.
Yeah.
So we were 100% self-funded, and we just started slow. And we got, we were lucky enough that timing was good, and we did a great job with the members that were coming in. And so we happened to grow faster than expected. But I was fully prepared to just, eat top ramen for years if I needed to.
Yeah, man. Well, it sounded like you had nice training wheels by running the other gym for 18 months. You felt like, I'm sure you felt the pain of obviously working 2 things at once, and not sleeping, but probably dipped your toes in enough to where you're like, all right, I can do this,
Yeah, that's exactly right. As I had my testing period, right? That I knew that it was more than just a fleeting thing. It was more than, especially in our space, in the fitness space, there's a lot of people that love to work out and think, well, I'll open a gym. And it's like, wow, those are 2 really different things.
Sure. Yeah.
And so I had realized that this was about a lot more than working out. It was about, how we could impact lives through, teachings that we could make in the gym.
No, I think that's the hugest part. That's what I'm getting from this is you're big into the impact. And I know from personal experience doing CrossFit and just strength workouts, now it's a little like more individualized programming for me, but like it's helped in so many aspects of my life to keep focus and, stay true to my own plan, and got a coach as like accountability partner. And that just trickles into all areas of life and my business. It's really cool. So I could see you're doing a great thing, bringing, how many members do you guys have or do you work with on a consistent basis?
Yeah. I mean, in San Diego, it might be, closer to 800 members across facilities. And then, we also have a very large online presence, and we have, several thousand that we're coaching through online subscriptions and individualized, personal coaching online.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's freaking ripple effect across everywhere. The fact that you made that decision to, and a lot of people, I'm just saying this because there's a lot of people listening that are probably like thinking about making a transition, or they're just so hesitant, but there's this passion, that intuition that you had, but it just took a while to kind of get to. And now it's making that impact, which is really cool to see.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, from like a brand perspective, I have to imagine that Invictus is probably the most well-known CrossFit brand, just because, you watch the CrossFit games and you're the biggest representation of a gym at CrossFit games is your gyms. So I'm curious, in the early days, how were you marketing yourself? How were you getting new people in the door to the gym? Because you obviously have amazing success now, but it was probably a bit of a grind to get there.
Yeah, so that's the thing that I've enjoyed the most is that in my life, I would say my greatest successes have been what I would call unintended consequences. And not to go too far back, but I also started a nonprofit organization in Oregon called Kids Helping Kids that grew and is tremendously successful. Long since I left. And when you look at it, it's not that we set out. We never set out with a goal of creating competitive teams. The sport hadn't even really arrived in terms of CrossFit at the time that we opened our gyms. We set out just to help people achieve whatever goals they had, right? And so at the time, that might have been people came in and wanted to be able to run a 5K and weren't in shape, and so they were going to run 2 days a week and come work out with us 3 days a week, or it was just to lose weight. And in the process of that, we had a couple people that came in and said, man, I love this stuff. I'd love to compete at it. And so our job just, was to help them do that. And the way we did that never changed. It was the same whether somebody was walking in and say, I want to lose 100 pounds or I want to be a world champion at the CrossFit Games. It was, okay, we need to educate you with all of the things it's going to take. We need to make sure that you have all the support in terms of equipment and, kind of nutrition coaches, whatever that's going to be. And then we need to make sure that there's somebody there to encourage you, because you will hit an obstacle that you think you can't overcome.
Yeah.
In any pursuit, whether that's business, training, anything, if you are setting decent goals, there will be significant periods of time where it doesn't appear that you're going to reach your goal. And so how do you get there? How do you get past that? And that's where, in my opinion, coaching gets fun, right? Because that's where we're able to share lessons about resilience. It's where we have to get creative. It's where, you see people that either, give up or they find a new path and they make it work. And so those are all the kind of character things that we love coaching. And the sport side was just an interesting outgrowth, totally unintended. And what ended up happening was we had some really good success early on with athletes. More athletes kept coming in with similar goals. We were still able to help them. And so, this is kind of spiral. We've now coached over 60 individual games athletes. We've had a team at the CrossFit Games every year that they've had teams. Last year we had 3 out of the 14 teams competing for the world championship. So
I remember watching that and being like, what the hell? Like, how did they pull that off?
Right. So it's awesome. Been it's been really cool, but never part of our business plan. And to this day, I mean, we just finished our year-end staff meeting talking about what we did well this year and our objectives for next year, and not once did we talk about a competitive athlete. Right. It's not something that, is our focus. The focus is the individual who wants to be competitive and making sure that they're prepared to achieve their goals, or it's the group of individuals for our teams. But there's not an overriding like, hey, we're going to go out and try to qualify 4 teams or anything like that. It's just simply, we're going to help the people that want help. And if that path puts them to the CrossFit Games, great.
Yeah. You definitely, it sounds like you get to like the core human level. You figure out what are like limiting beliefs that won't allow someone to not only complete a workout, but to stick with training on a consistent schedule? I know that's tough for a lot of people. And what are some of because I know you're big on mindset, what are some of the core things that you try to instill in all of the folks that you train in terms of, mindset, limiting beliefs, and kind of coping with a lot of the tough times of working out and just sticking to something that might not feel so good in the moment?
Yeah. I mean, I think one, as a starting point, it's clearly identifying the purpose and the intention of the training, right? Mm-hmm. And so, when we look at people's purpose, you can see people that are really talented if they're trying to, say, compete at a competitive level, but don't really know why they want to do it, right? Mm-hmm. Or if they're coming in because they're like, oh, if I'm good at this, my Instagram following will grow and I'll get sponsorships, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Like, that guy will never make it in this sport, because the sport of fitness is effort based. It's not highly skill based. And the one thing is that person that doesn't have an innate drive, that is just aiming for some external measure of success, the minute things get really hard, they will quit.
Right.
And like, I've seen that now for, more than a dozen years in competition and CrossFit. And you see people that are way more talented, but don't have that inner drive. And then, you get blessed to work with some athletes like Kristen Hota, who, I've worked with for 6 years. And, this is a woman that is so clear on what she's doing and why she's doing it. And, that is just obsessed with being her best. Yeah. Right. And it so happened that her best was good for second place in the world last year, to another, really phenomenal athlete, Tia, who took first.
Right.
But that's not the goal. It's not the stated goal. We're not talking about like, oh, how can I beat Tia? Tia's great. She doesn't care about Tia. She's trying to figure out, how can Kristen Holta be the best athlete that Kristen's capable of being?
Yeah. How would you coach someone through that purpose or that drive, that inner drive, if they're a little murky and they kind of have an idea, but you could tell it's not coming out in their actions? Are there some things that you do?
Yeah. So I think one thing is establishing, just on intake, understanding the tone of what we're trying to do and the tone of the relationship. And so one of the things I did very early on was, when we would have athletes reach out and say, oh, okay, I want to make it to the CrossFit Games, right? Normally that's when somebody's telling you their goal, they're picking something that's very tangible. And they may not even be clear on why they want it. And so one of the things I did with them very early on, all these athletes on intake, was we would talk about, I would ask them their 5 kind of core values and priorities. And then we would go through their daily schedule. Like, literally just write down what time you wake up, what do you eat in the morning, where do you go, stuff like that. And then we would look at that, and then I would ask them to reflect on their core values and then rewrite their schedule in a way that would better reflect their priorities. And what you would find is like, and I wasn't doing it to be a jerk, but like, I did not want athletes training 3 hours a day if they were telling me that they had a job, kids, and a wife, and they're in, their spouse, kids, and job in that order were their top 3 priorities.
Right.
Because they weren't ever going to achieve what they actually wanted to achieve. And so we would use that as the basis just to get real clear. And those people that did have time to train multiple times a day, then of course we would slot that in based on their priorities. And those people that did not have, the time, we would say, okay, so what do you have? You've got 60 minutes. So now let's make the most of those 60 minutes. And, like one athlete in particular, Val Vogerl, I mean, her total training time in a week was probably, equivalent to what some of our other athletes was in a day to 2 days. And yet she took, in the 4 years we worked together, she took 5th, 3rd, 5th, and 3rd.
Wow.
And she just did it in a way that aligned with her priorities and in a way that could be sustainable, instead of, banging her head against the wall, getting frustrated because she felt like she was a failure in other aspects of her life. and then quitting the sport, which, isn't a desirable outcome for an athlete or coach.
Yeah. No, I could see that perfect. Like, it is a good intake, and this is perfect for business too. You're going to get a happier client. You're going to get better results. You're going to have them stick around a lot longer. And, I bet a lot of those limiting beliefs that could pop up probably are a lot more quiet, or they're more confident in themselves because they've aligned, the core values to the actions they're going to take on a daily or, weekly basis.
And I think when it comes to business, I've been through some different cycles of business myself, and I've talked to some friends and helped some people along the way. And it's like, it gets tempting to grow just because you can grow. Mm-hmm. And if you're not checking in with your core values and priorities, you can get pretty far down the line and realize, wait, I didn't even want to do this.
Been there. Yeah, we definitely, Matt and I feel like we always do like a constant assessment of that. It's like we have a pretty good shared vision all the time, but it's very simple to muddy the waters with opportunities or I want to grow, and then it's like a business model that doesn't align with what we want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And we see that with athletes all the time, right? That the gym. Look, don't get me wrong, professional athletes, their workouts are going to be their obsession, and that's fine. That's their career. But, 99% of the people that we deal with, they want their fitness to supplement their life. Mm-hmm. So if I've got somebody wasting, 2.5 hours in the gym each day, we probably have to have a discussion on hey, how does this align? But people get addicted to success. And so the minute that they're succeeding in the gym, the answer is more and more. And we see the same thing in business.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a good mixture of the values. I think starting with why is just massive.
Yeah. Yeah. One of the things, so when we do this show, one of the things we do is we do we Google Invictus and CJ and everything we can. And one of the things that kept popping up over and over and over again, every time I would Google any of these terms, was the Invictus mindset. Like the term, the Invictus mindset, just kept popping up over and over again. Do you think maybe you can give us sort of an overview of what the Invictus mindset is?
Yeah, absolutely. So the gym name in and of itself, obviously, was inspired by the poem by William Ernest Henley, right? Which ends with, "I'm the master of my fate. I'm the captain of my soul." Mm-hmm. And it's an extremely powerful poem. For me, it evokes this sense of, that you can be absolutely unconquerable, right? Which is the translation of Invictus. And it was taught to me by my grandfather, who was a World War II Marine, and they had some just horrible landings. He was in the South Pacific Marine Infantry 4th Division, and they took just massive losses, and they would have to land on these small islands where enemies were dug in and just picking them off from these boats, and they would recite this poem as they would go into landings. And I thought that was really interesting. And then growing up as a fighter in martial arts and boxing, I would lean on stuff like that to kind of amp you up. And I'll be honest, I didn't know the whole genesis of the poem until much later. Mm-hmm. And then you realize that this wasn't some, pump up speech before an event. Henley had actually been laying in a hospital bed for almost 3 years trying to save his remaining leg from tuberculosis of the bone. Wow. So what you realize is that this is a manifesto not for, walking into a bad situation. This was his manifesto when everything had gone wrong.
Yeah.
And it was him saying, you know what, external circumstances being what they may, you'll never strip me of my character. You'll never, strip me of my soul. And I think that's where the real power is that how can we convey that mindset of you'll never be able to take away my inherent desire, my inherent fight for the things that are important to me in my life. Wow. And that's what I love about CrossFit is that it's unlike almost any other sport. From the sporting aspect of it, I grew up fighting, and when I walk into a ring, I was really clear on my objective. My objective was to knock out the other guy before he could land a single punch on me.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? CrossFit is different, right? Because if you want to be successful, whether you're just training in the gym or, if you're going out and competing, you don't you don't get the benefit of not being subjected to discomfort. Mm-hmm. In fact, the only way to win is to subject yourself to more discomfort than you feel like is probably reasonable.
Yeah.
And so when we start looking at that in terms of lessons, it's like if we can teach people that resilience of looking at things that they should legitimately be afraid of, not afraid like it will do permanent damage, but afraid in terms of this is not going to be comfortable, and that then I still choose to do it. If you can develop that habit, the crossover into every other aspect of your life is massively powerful.
Yeah.
And so that's the part that I still find fascinating to this day is, how can we help people adopt that mindset of it doesn't matter how uncomfortable this is. It doesn't matter how many times I fail. I'm going to continue to be resilient. I'm going to continue to fight for this. And that's where I think we've had, when I say we're blessed to be surrounded by great athletes, we're blessed to be surrounded by incredible business owners, entrepreneurs, lawyers that are members of our community. And I think that's, the unintended consequence is that we've created this community of success and this mindset around you are capable if you choose to be capable.
That's freaking awesome. Now I want to go look into that poem a lot more. Thanks for explaining that too. And yeah, I mean, I can only speak for myself, but I just know there's a massive turning point in a lot of the things I feel like I lacked in, like structure and efficiency and pushing myself in a new way every day. That's what CrossFit allows to do, because it's almost like, obviously there's a competitive aspect where there's teams and stuff, but a lot of times it's almost like golf. You're like always trying to compete against yourself and do a little bit better, be a little bit more efficient. And I don't know, like my mobility was jacked up when I first started, but it's like, guess what? Now like my back pain's gone and I stand up more straighter, and I can, I don't know, talk the talk on different things. And there's a lot of benefits that trickle into, I know for me, business and just life, like just happiness. So with the mindset and the coaching, like you guys, I could see why it's attracting, the best of the best.
Yeah, no, it's, and the thing that I just love is like our gym community is, they are so representative of so many different demographics, but you see people thriving in all different aspects of life. And how exactly we kind of, collect all these individuals and bring them into this community, I have no idea, but that's the magic that, we just absolutely adore and are most fulfilled by. Yeah.
Well, when it comes to like culture and I know community, you keep talking a lot about that. You have an online and an off, in-person aspect to that. Like, what are some core things that folks listening can kind of instill in their own business or in their life that bring a sense of like a really good culture, a community that's, pumped up and it's doing good for not only yourself, but the world, because you're doing like, nonprofit stuff. You extend the ripple effects pretty wide, it sounds like.
Yeah, it's like I said, we just wrapped up our year-end meeting with our staff. And at the end of the day, it's, I believe that our business is human connection. And so when you think about that, you say, okay, we've been able to expand to, serve tens, thousands of online clients. How does that really translate? And our process is still the same. And I think what's the differentiator for us is that if somebody's engaging with our online subscription platforms and they're posting results, they're asking questions, they always have a coach answering them back. Mm-hmm. And that is where we've put all of our time and resources is into creating a phenomenal coaching staff that cares more about people than they are used to being cared about, right? Most people, especially like on our online side, expect that if they pay a small fee for a online program, that they're just going to get the program and nobody's going to really track their benefits. So they get blown away when one of our coaches, shoots them an email like, "Hey man, like haven't seen you post for the last few days. How's everything going?" Right? And I think that's a big difference. Obviously in our gym communities, it's even more personal, and we're able to have a deeper connection with these people because we see them on a daily basis. And if we don't, we're calling them and we're trying to figure out what's going on, how we can help. And if that just means writing some workouts while they travel, great. But if that means they're going through a hard time, it might just mean our coach is saying like, "Hey, let's schedule a 10-minute coffee just to like catch up." Right. And so I think it comes down to that, making sure that your business is able to create human connection and serve the need, whatever it is that your clients are coming in to talk about.
It's almost like the sort of accountability element is just baked into the culture. That's obviously something that you don't get with like a 24-hour fitness or something, right? There's no accountability. There's nobody that cares if you're successful. In fact, I think like their business model is if you pay us and don't show up, that's better for us. But
they'd be in big trouble if everybody showed up.
Yeah, exactly.
That's a good point.
So
think about how much people complain in January. When you get all the resolution people, and now all of a sudden they can't, get in a workout because it's packed for the 2.5 weeks until everybody stops with that.
That's true.
No, that's definitely true. But I'm curious, what do you think makes your CrossFit gym and your methods different than other CrossFit gyms? Because, I feel like the accountability stuff is kind of, it's there with CrossFit in general, right? Most of them kind of have a really do a good job of building that community and the accountability and things like that. What do you think makes you guys different that sort of gets this many people into the CrossFit games and gets you up to 800 members while a lot of other CrossFit gyms around town are really struggling? What do you think that sort of X factor is that you guys have that other gyms aren't doing?
Yeah, I think you're generally right. I think the success of CrossFit is largely on this understanding that there's better accountability in communities and groups, that fitness done, with headphones on and a bunch of mirrors is probably not going to be as successful for most people, because what most CrossFit gyms are tapping into just a need for connection, right? Yeah. We, as a society, we are extremely lonely. And a lot of people are just siloed off in their individual cars and cubicles and all sorts of things. But I think what's made us different in that is we certainly lean into that, right? That we want to make sure that people are healthy and happy. But I think the biggest difference is that we've never wanted to. Most CrossFit gyms are group coaching, and we do a lot of private coaching as well as group coaching. But even within our group coaching, the one thing we've always emphasized is you are being coached, which means that we do not expect members to walk in and all do the same workout. That if you have a group of 15 people, you might see 8 different workouts going on during that same hour that are different variations that are more appropriate for that member than what might be written up on the whiteboard. And so it's really been our commitment to the individuals, not to, the actual program.
Yeah.
And then what goes along with that is if you're going to do that successfully, you better hire really, smart professional coaches that are making good decisions on a daily basis. And you make sure that you are constantly educating them so that they can be better. And so from very early on, while we have been a CrossFit affiliate, we love CrossFit, we've also deviated a lot more than most in terms of how we structure and design programs and the things we add and the things that we don't do in our programs. To make sure that they suit the goals and needs of our community members.
Yeah, no, that's good, man. And I didn't even think about this though, but all the coaches, coaches are a crucial part of the community, the culture, extending your vision, starts from the top, but also, it starts from their level and even the members at the lowest level.
Yeah. So there must be an element there of like hiring really great people. As
well. So how do you find the best people to fit in the culture as a coach that can be that advocate for your vision?
Yeah. So, I mean, one, we've been very lucky. So part of our initial team that we opened our gym with, right? We were all total nerds, like when it came to training, and like we all love to research and write. And so our business started, before we even had 50 members, we were posting daily articles on our website, right? Trying to give people substance and help them make their experience better, which is how we built our online following. It's how we built our business. It's how we attracted athletes, is because we had a bunch of really smart coaches sharing what they learned. And when you do that, you then attract a bunch of other really smart coaches that want to be pushed, that want to be, surrounded by other like-minded individuals that don't want to just show up and, coach the same stuff they've been coaching, but want to show up. They want to learn. They want to get better. They want to have a deeper impact on people. And so in the process of that, we recruited even more great coaches. Then we got to a point where people understood that, what our brand was, what would be expected of them if they were to be offered a job. And so it got to the point where now, every time we've hired, which, knock on wood, we haven't had to hire that often. We don't have high turnover of our coaches. Got a lot of 10 plus year employees. And, but when we do put a job announcement, we're getting 100 plus applicants. So we can also be really selective in our process.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I love the fact that you have everyone, it's the sharing, the sharing of information and things you're learning, things they're learning. I think that's been actually a key thing that we've tried to do in our business as best as possible, is put everything out there widely available. And, for a lot of business owners, I think it's scary to, put out some of the secret sauce or whatever it might be. And it actually, it's completely the opposite. Like, it brings in the best people, the best, like for your case, in our case too, is best clients, team members as well has helped. And just, I would say branding, it helps with elevating the company to a higher level. And like our give back is this podcast, actually. Like, we don't charge anything, but we bring in, the smartest people we know, and we try to get their best advice out of them. And
I mean, that's absolutely, I think, critical for any business. And it's kind of the genesis of why we wanted to get into this industry, is like, hey, how can you help people? And if you figure out how you can help people, chances are you'll figure out how to monetize it at some point.
Oh my God, yeah. That's almost like the easy part after the fact. You just got to get the attention and the trust first, and then, from there, anything's possible.
Yeah, so like you say, that's the easy part, but I'm not a business guy. And the funny thing, I got to share with you one funny story is like we started in like the end of 2008, and we've been posting all this online content and stuff. It wasn't until 2012 I got an email snail mail, right? Like a hard copy letter from a guy. Still love the guy. He just got his Christmas card. But Peter Bashan, he's from like St. Louis, Missouri. He's a real estate agent. He's got great family, a couple, cute kids. And he wrote me this awesome letter. He's like, hey man, I've been following your program. Here's all these PRs and stuff. And he said, I went to your website to see if I could buy a shirt or somehow support you, and you don't sell anything, so here's a check for $50.
That's awesome.
And so it's funny because like you talk about that, like monetizing is the easy part. It was like it never even crossed my mind that like people might buy T-shirts, right? Like, oh yeah. So Peter sent me that mail way back in the day. I had no idea who he was other than like see his name posting. And then we were like, oh shoot, I guess we should add like a Shopify component to our website.
Yeah.
It was like 2 years later, I think we did over $750,000 in apparel or something.
Look at there, man. See,
I guess I should have thought of this sooner.
I mean, like, yeah, and obviously it's not always so easy on the, without thinking about it, it's tough. But like, if you have attention, if you're giving good value away, people just want to give back. And it might be in who knows what form, but like merch, I mean, shoot, yeah.
Well, it's amazing to have a brand that people want to go and sort of attach themselves to. That's, I mean, that's something that most companies never achieve, right? Most companies never get to a point where the people want to wear the name of their company around out in public and show off that I'm involved with this company in some way. So that's really, really impressive that just from a branding perspective that you've managed to reach that point, and almost kind of by accident, which makes it even more of a fun story.
It's even better.
Yeah. It's interesting. I love hearing you say that about like merch, because what I've always said when we review our financials is I'm like, the merch doesn't speak to me in financial measurement. It speaks to me in terms of brand equity. Right? Yes. How much value do people place on the brand? Because we're not an apparel designer.
Yeah. No, that's kind of how we see merch as well. As we sell it for $10-15 for a shirt, but it's like it's negligible in terms of the finances. But when you see people posting on Instagram, social media, all that stuff, and furthering the message that we're trying to further ourselves, now you have this ripple effect. It's kind of like it just exponentially grows from that point on. And that's why we give a lot of stuff away as well. Like actually, like when you took the intake form for this podcast, it's like we always ask for an address and shirt size. We're like, well, it's a branding play. It's a free thing to us, and it's just a kind of give back thing. Yeah. So it's. Sure.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to kind of shift focus a little bit, unless you had something else along these lines you want to talk about. Okay, I want to talk a little bit about work life, home life balance, and how what your take is on it. You've got a fairly big company. I'm assuming you've got a family back at home. How do you kind of keep it all balanced and operating, and everybody's getting the amount of time that they need to get from you? Yeah,
that word balance is. I'm not sure how I feel about it. Like I can tell you that there is no balance in my life. I think that, and I don't even know if that's the goal. I think that for me, it's, you create your priorities, and I've got 2 kids. I've got a 4 and 6-year-old, and obviously their mom, and those are my non-negotiables. There are things that, I'm going to be home at a certain time to make sure that I'm there for dinner. And there are days that I'm going to, drop them off at school. And if that means I have to cancel meetings or, other things, then, that just aligns with my priorities. And so I kind of build around that. And then, every other waking minute is devoted to the business and my employees and opportunities that arise, and that's just kind of been our flow for my family, and I'm not sure it would be right for other people, but it's like for me, I find that as long as I put them first, I'm willing to bear the brunt of like some schedule shifts and working late nights or something, as long as I know that I haven't missed significant things in my kids' lives.
Yeah, cool. It kind of sounds like back to the core values. It's like when you're looking for folks, it's like, all right, so what's the why behind everything you're doing?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a perfect balance, because it's kind of impossible anyway, but you're striving for whatever, putting the focus in what matters most to you.
Yeah, that's right. And my kids are now a little bit older and it's easier, but I remember when they were like 1 and 3, I reached out to some friends. I'm like, how the hell do you guys do this? Guys that were also business owners or CEOs of large companies and very successful people I looked up to. And it was really interesting. And I was really appreciative that they all shared, because we all had different ways of doing it, right? Like a guy I have just an insane amount of respect for. He's a real mentor for me. But he was like, I leave the house at 5 a.m. I get my workout in. I come home at 7, and don't do anything with work after that. And the kids go to bed like 7:30, so he wasn't seeing them a ton during the week. But he's like, no, my week is to dedicate all of my time and attention to my wife after I get home. He's like, I really believe that, that our relationship has to be the most important thing so that my kids are well taken care of. And then on the weekends, he's totally devoted to his kids. And so, for me, I look at those long days away from my kids. I'm like, man, I need to spend a little more time with that day to day with my kids. So it wasn't the right answer for me, but I loved the perspective of like, we all have looked at our priorities a little bit differently and said, here's how I'm going to tackle this. And then as long as you kind of stay consistent to that commitment, I think it works well.
Yeah, I love that. No, thanks for the explanation. And yeah, I think it's really cool. And I was just thinking about this, actually going back to what you were saying earlier. We were talking about monetization. You said you're not really a business guy, which is funny, running this thing. What are some of the struggles? Like, what's a struggle that you just felt like, I don't know, like it could have broken you, but or something that was just massive that you got through in business specifically, that you can share with us here, and maybe some lessons along the way that you learned?
Oh man. We've definitely been through our fair share, but I mean, it's still relatively recent. 2019 was really our first year turning it back around, but from 2008 through 2016, like it was just smooth sailing, right? Like it was super easy, and like we were always exceeding expectations, and that's pretty awesome because then you don't even have to make smart decisions.
Right. That's true.
You make stupid decisions. You can overhire and, pay people way too much, and you can buy too much equipment. And as long as you keep growing, you kind of catch up to it. Mm-hmm. And in 16, we had a demolition clause in our lease of our original location, and they exercised the demolition clause. So we said, okay, no problem. We'll move, it happens. Yeah. And we ran into, it would take hours to go, but we ran into the perfect storm of various city permitting, facilities issues. And
we've heard about this. I have a buddy in San Diego who's gone through similar things.
Yeah. So we ended up essentially, we secured a lease on a location that was way further north of our downtown location. It was in Sereno Valley. And so we said, okay, well, that's all we were able to find kind of in our search parameters. And so we signed a lease on that. It was going to be a massive facility. We're thinking, okay, well, we're going to move from 5,000 square feet to 12,000 square feet because, we've had all this growth. And, we get into the project and we're 35 days out from having to be out of our location and move into this place. And the city comes in and says, oh, you're going to now need structural engineering. It's going to be about a 6-month delay.
I love that.
So as a gym owner who's relying on, recurring memberships, you can't just shut down for 6 months and say, hey, we'll let you know when we're open. You can come back, right? Yeah. It doesn't work. And so we had to get really creative. And we did, and we found a great location. We love downtown, but long story short, we built 2 12,000 square foot facilities at the same time as a self-funded business with not anywhere close to requisite cash reserves. Wow. And way too proud to ever take money when we didn't need it, never knew that we should get a line of credit because we always had cash flow. And then got ourselves into a position where we were spending, well over $500,000 over budget because of all these circumstances coming up with no, financing funding already secured. Wow. And so, to say that, there were legitimate times that we were probably on the brink of, bankruptcy or disaster had one more thing,
of course,
broken bad for us. And so I still have no idea how the hell we got through it. Wow. We're still standing, and 2019 was the first year that we're like, since the end of 2016, where it's like, okay, we're back on our feet and things are moving in the right direction. And, but I think that experience of those struggles has made us so much better for the long term.
Yeah.
Because I don't think there would have never been an impetus for me to learn how to run a business if we had continued the smooth sailing that we had, because I just thought, oh, this is easy.
Yeah, that was like the realization. You're like, oh, I got to get my stuff in order. Yeah,
yeah, exactly. And so, and there's nothing that will make you realize that quite like, almost losing it all.
Of course. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, man. And I'm sure, that's the whole perseverance. I mean, I'm sure the mindset helped and all this stuff that you've already instilled, but that's, entrepreneurs, I mean, we're dealing with that every single day in different forms, and some are massive like that, and some are just like, a shitty client that's just, pesking at someone and someone's freaking. Yeah, there's a lot of tolls. So, that's really inspiring.
It was definitely a good opportunity to practice the mindset that we preach.
Yeah, for sure. Matt, you got something over there? Well, sweet. We hit everything and more, actually. Talk really quick about the nonprofit. Are you still with them or the one you started?
No, I started it, kind of a funny story. So I actually got in a lot of trouble in middle school. I was in 7th, 8th grade, but I jumped out of a moving bus window as an act of defiance, because this substitute teacher said, nobody's getting off this bus. And he tried to he was a big guy. He stood in the middle of the bus aisle and he was kind of threatening it. Yeah, I was like, I'll get off the bus. So
watch me. Oh, there's broken leg. Shit.
Yeah. And so anyway, but I had a great principal. And so it wasn't the first time I had been in trouble. And so, but she brought me in and she was like, hey, you got 2 choices. We have to expel you. She's like, or I'll send you as a delegate to this leadership camp. And in my mind at the time, I'm like, I have to go to a camp with a bunch of nerds, just expel me, And at the end, so she sent me to the leadership camp, and then the follow up was I had to do something. I had to organize some event, and so I organized this event. And I had a family member who had been in the neonatal intensive care in our hometown in Oregon, and so I said, okay, we'll do this event, and we'll give the money to Children's Miracle Network, which funds the neonatal intensive cares, and the money stays in your community and stuff. And so we started it, and then, at the time it was this mile of quarters. We were just kids lining up quarters at the middle school. And we got some other middle schools involved, and it was like, oh, cool. That was a nice little fundraiser. And then I went on to high school, and we realized high school kids aren't going to get stoked about, lining up quarters. But we did this senior boy pageant, right? It was at my high school. It was called Mr. Irish, where it was all the girls voted, and 10 guys got in. And then they raised money, and they did all sorts of crazy things. And it culminated with them doing this kind of pageant where it was funny skits and, stuff like that. And so that took off, and then all these other schools wanted to be involved. And, to date, it's been a while. I'm 42 years old, but to date, I think it's raised over $16 million or something like that throughout the state of Oregon. And so it was, it obviously was a very successful fundraiser. One of the things, like I mentioned, unintended consequences though, is, I grew up around the time of the first school shootings, and we had one, near our area at Thurston High School with Kip Kinkle. One of the unintended consequences of these senior boy pageants though, is when you ask the full student body to vote, you get a representation of the full student body. Yeah. And through most aspects in school, like sports, you get little cliques, right? You get the guys who are very talented as athletes, or you get, whatever.
The drama crew.
Yeah, drama or whatever. And the really cool thing is when you bring 10 kids together and the whole student body votes on it, is that there was a representative from every one of those groups. And then they had to be together, and they spent significant time, because they are also there was the senior girls were involved, teaching them dance routines, setting up choreography, all this stuff. So these 10 guys are together all the time, and they end up making lifelong friends with people they had never talked to in 4 years of high school. And so it was this really cool bridge of these social groups. some of which were really outcasted. And it honestly like created this ripple effect through the community where it knocked down a lot of those, barriers to, and cliques and notions of who could do what.
Yeah, like even the plane and everybody had the same equal voice in the whole thing. Yeah, that's cool, man. No, that's huge, and $16 million later too.
Yeah, which I take zero credit for. Like that's right. Like as a high school kid, like I was happy to start it. I worked on it all throughout high school. In college, I would continue to go back and give talks at kickoffs and conventions and stuff like that. But then it was like there's so many talented young people out there, which that was a thrill. Like going back, even when I was, just out of college, I'd like meet these high school seniors. I'm like, dude, you're 40 times smarter than I was. Like run with it.
Yeah, man. just hang out.
It's been kept on by amazing young individuals. So.
Cool. Well, you started a good thing. No, that's rad, man.
Very awesome.
We'll wrap it up here, and we always like to end it just asking, what's a solid book, something that a book or resource that you just find yourself maybe going back to often or referring to buddies of yours, people in the gym, maybe there.
Yeah, I love The Only Way to Win by Jim Loehr. It's a great book that takes a very different approach than most high performance athletes are used to, in that it's really, helping people to understand like what are you truly fighting for, right? To make sure that you're not spending all your time kind of climbing the wrong ladder.
Nice. Cool. It's like required reading at your gym.
Yeah.
Right, man. Well, cool, CJ. Well, where can folks go check you out, check out Invictus and all that?
Yeah, you check us out online, just invictusfitness.com. And Branditize Eric would kill me, but I don't really know our social handles that well.
I was going to ask you, but I was like,
they're like CF Invictus or something like that.
We'll make sure to link them up on the actual show notes page.
Yeah. We got some help for that, but I love it though. Like you're leading the company, you don't need to know that crap.
Well, no, I just I'm not a social media guy. It's still like that's a different episode, but like I would be so happy to see it all go away.
Yeah, no, I kind of
we're on the
agree.
same page, and that discussion's come up multiple times.
Yeah, it's too much noise out there.
I hate what it does to society, but but yes, I love what it does for our business because it helps us share our message with much broader reach people, and we can share a ton of substantive content on there. So most of our stuff is free. We're giving away great articles and telling everybody exactly how we work with clients in here, and hoping that it helps change their lives elsewhere.
Sweet.
Love it, man.
Appreciate it, man. Well, we'll go link that up in the show notes and all that stuff so people can find it. All right, CJ, appreciate your time, dude.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Of course.
Hey. Thank you for listening to that episode. This is Joe Fier. I'm sure you probably already knew that. And Matt is not here right now, but I'm pretty sure he enjoyed the episode just as much as you and I did, because, he went into the production of kind of making that thing right along with me. So thank you very much. And I want to give a quick shout out to our buddies over at Easy Webinar. These guys have been supporting us for a while, a long time. And Casey Zeman is just a super good guy all around. He's actually been on the show before. He's the founder of Easy Webinar. So if you look up Casey Zeman on any podcast platform you're listening to, go check him out. Go check out his backstory, what he's all about. You can learn a lot about webinars as well. And right now, Easy Webinar, these guys are actually hooking you up with a great trial. It's a completely free trial to test out their software, soup to nuts, check it all out and see if it's a good fit for you. If you go to easywebinar.com/hustle, that's HUSTLE, if you didn't know how to spell hustle, there you go. So if you go to easywebinar.com/hustle, you can go grab a free trial. And Easy Webinar literally lives up to its name. It's super simple, super easy, and it does all the stuff that you're looking for in any kind of thing with webinars. They literally cover every single type of webinar you possibly can do. So from live to automated to scheduled at specific times and all these crazy features in between. Can't even list them all out. I'll be here way too long. They give you a ton of advanced analytics, what's working, what's not during your webinar based off all these actions. You'll see who attended, how long they stayed, if they clicked the offer or if they didn't. Basically, you're going to make more money and you're going to work less with this thing, and you're going to create better relationships with the folks that are listening because it's a good experience. You want to give that good experience along with some great content, of course, and a killer offer if that's what you got for them. So go try it out yourself. Go check out easywebinar.com/hustle. That's easywebinar.com/hustle. Alrighty. So that is the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening to this episode, enjoying it. Hopefully you did. I'm pretty sure you did if you lasted this long. And go check out Easy Webinar when you get the chance, and we will talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to this episode of the Hustle and Flowchart podcast. Before taking the time to listen, we want to give you something a little bit special. Every single episode that we do, we actually have somebody on our team take notes. We basically have a Cliff's Notes version of every episode where you can go and find all of the tips and tactics that they laid out, all of the resources that they laid out, all the good stuff from this episode. We actually have a nice simple notes version that you can find on our website. So go to evergreenprofits.com, find this episode that you just listened to, and give us your email address and we'll send you the notes. Thanks for listening.